Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me on the webinar?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jolene.
Can you hear me now, ladies and gentlemen? Apologies for that. It is the fool behind the tool. That is what I am when it comes to technology. Can you see me? Yes. Can you hear me? Awesome. I do apologize for that. Like I said, I might want to learn the basics of a computer going forward. Thank you so much for joining our webinar this morning. Thank you so much for our marketing team for the awesome video. And thank you for your precious time. We will not go over time as I talk super fast. So the requirement for joining this webinar here today is you have to sit in your exclusive use area when you are doing this webinar. So please go to your patio or your balcony or your swimming pool or your garden area. Even if you think it's yours or not yours, please go there now. We're going to start, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to switch off my camera. I am Jolene Wasserman, and I am going to please indicate if you can see my slides. All the slides will be given to you afterwards. Pop your questions, please, in the chat box. We are going to collate everything afterwards, and then we're going to send it to everyone here. I've also compiled 20 questions that I have asked and answered it after the webinar. So if we don't get to your question, please just pop it in the chat. We're going to collate everything and we're going to send it to everyone, the Q and the A, as well as the provision of where it comes from in the law. That's always very important. It's not just Jolene saying this. Jolene wants to say this. So this is probably one of the most misunderstood topics in sectional title, in a body corporate, is, do I own that garden? Do I own that parking? Well, we're going to see today if you own it, whether it's via the deeds office or via rules. Many people think that they've built that swimming pool on that braai area. They can do that, but first, is it yours to build on? Remember, common property is all of ours in the body corporate, in undivided shares. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to look at myself any longer. I am going to I'm going to flight my presentation. Can you see it? Can you see it? Just give me a yes, because I can't see you now. Can you see my presentation, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make it bigger. I am going to, and this is the first slide. What they are, how they are created, who pays, how you built, and how to convert a personal right into a real right. And this is all about exclusive use areas today. So we're not talking about a homeowners association. We're not talking about a shared block company. We're not talking about a mature lifestyle estate if it's a life right. We are talking about exclusive use area. An exclusive use area is a defined portion of the common property that is reserved for the exclusive use and enjoyment of a particular owner. And this is the legal principle. The area always remains common property, ladies and gentlemen. Ownership of the land does not transfer. Only the right of use is exclusive. Now, what can be deemed as exclusive use areas? Now, here's a few examples. Parking bays. You know that parking where you stop right in front of your unit? Is it your parking bay? Is it visitors parking? Is it unallocated parking? Is it first come, first serve? Or is it yours that you've bought and you've got a session for it? Or is it in the rules? Jolene owns unit number 1. That is my section. And of course, the undivided share in the common property. And also then parking number 1. Is that parking yours? The garden. might be enclosed, it might not be enclosed. That beautiful garden surrounding your unit, is it yours? The courtyard, that patio, the storeroom. That's what we're going to look at today. An owner does not own an exclusive use area, and in short, it's an EUA that we refer to. They either hold a registered real right, we're going to talk about that, or enjoy a rule-based personal right. And the distinction is legally decisive. You will know. Many people says, I don't know. We're going to look at that today. 3 lawful methods of creation. In our law, in the sectional title legislation, recognizes only 3 lawful mechanisms for the creation of EUAs. By the developer, if we buy off plan, it's usually when the scheme is first registered, the sectional title register is opened in the deeds office, and the developer says, Jolene, yeah, you get unit number 1 that you bought, and okay, Jolene, you get storeroom number 1 and parking number 1. Okay, thank you, and I buy it. Or the Sectional Titles Act, Section 27. Now, that has not been amended by the STM SMA. So how do you differentiate between the Sectional Titles Act and the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act? Very simple. The Sectional Titles Act holds many things that if we transfer properties in the deeds office, it's still for us conveyancers to use, or for the developer. He's got a Section 25 right of extension. So that is all about the conveyancing, and the process is still in the Sectional Title Act, if I may simplify it. And the real rights we hold. And the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act have taken over all the provisions of how we should govern ourselves as trustees, as owners, what we can do and we can't do lawfully within a body corporate. So Section 27 is still there, it's not been repealed by the STM SMA, and that gives us a real right. And what does a real right mean? That means we got a real right that we bought for parking number 1, for storeroom number 1. And then the third one is Section 10. Now that is rule-based. That is it's never a real right. A real right you can see and donate. A personal right is only yours. You can't cede or donate it. And those are the 3 ways exclusive use areas are allocated. In many schemes, and you will be shocked by this, ladies and gentlemen, there is no exclusive use allocated. Like that parking where you're parking, it's unallocated. It's a first come, first serve. Or we've done it like this, like for the last 20 years, Jolene, we can't do exclusive use right. How many people in South Africa? And it's common. It says, but I've built that beautiful swimming pool in that garden area, but is that garden area yours? Yes, well, I think it is mine, but I've seen a sectional title plan. I think it's mine. That's what we're going to go through today. Now, exclusive use areas cannot be created by long-standing practice. Well, I've been the chairperson for 20 years, and this is the way we've done it. So this is how it is. We must correct the errors of the past when it comes to exclusive use area. We want to avoid litigation. We want to avoid CISOS disputes. We have to get it right and legalize it. Remember, it's all about protecting your immovable asset, your property. Whether you're living it in yourself, whether you are renting it out as an investment property, we must protect that property, and it must be legal. We can't say, yes, Jolene built a swimming pool there in the garden, and now that's okay. But it was never my garden. It is common property. It belongs to all the owners in the scheme. Informal allocations, that how many times, and you might know trustees like this, how many times have the trustees allocated, you get that garden, you get that parking, but Jolene, you get nothing. That's how it works. You just park where you can, but a certain a bunch of owners can get allocated parking in the scheme. Do you know people like that? I'm sure you do. I know. That's why I'm full with these matters, unfortunately, that we are selecting and we are deciding who we are favoring or not. It applies equally to all within a community scheme. Trustees' permission alone Oh, the trustee says I can use this parking, so it's now mine. The chairperson gave me permission, and that's the end of it. It doesn't work like that because the Sectional Titles Act, Management Act tells us exactly how exclusive use works, and the Sectional Titles Act. Managing agent schedules. Yes, but my managing agent said I can use it because it's been done like this. Everything goes back to long-standing practice. The sale agreement have said that. I'm going to go into that. Yes, but the sale agreement said I have parking number 1, and that's how the property practitioner sold it to me, and that's how it is. Yes, but it's not allocated on the sectional title plan. You don't have a session for it. It's nowhere in the rules. Yes, but it's still mine. Wrong, it's not. Affidavits, no. The person number A gave person number B a sworn affidavit that he can use that parking, which is not even his, belongs to the body corporate. Assumption based on use. Now remember, I've used this garden for a very long time, so it's mine. They exist all the time. It doesn't make them legally. It doesn't make them in that that's enforceable as an exclusive use, right? Now this is on the money. This is what you want. Now go check. You have a title deed, ladies and gentlemen. It says you own unit number 1, for example, that is section number 2, for instance, because the number can be different, and you own an undivided share in the common property. You have a 2-bedroom. And then you have another document, a session document. So a registered property right enforceable against what we say the world. That's how powerful that document is. You can sell this exclusive use right again. The exclusive use right is delineated on the sectional plan. How many of you can tell me now, if we open this the floor, do you have in possession your sectional title plan? Where's your sectional title plan? Why don't you have your sectional title plan? You must have it. A certificate of real right is prepared for you for your parking or your garden or your storeroom. The right is registered in the deeds office. As conveyancers, we go to the deeds office and we register that real right the same where we register your section in your name. And it's transferred by you via a notarial deed of cession. That's what we call it. Now, this is very important. This is the legal consequences. And you can ask your transferee attorney to send you these documents. You can ask for the sectional title plan. Don't ask the managing agent or the trustees. They wouldn't have it. The managing agent changes hands. The trustees might never be in possession of this. Ask your transferee attorney or your bank if you have a bond. If you don't have a mortgage bond, you must have this document. For a valid Section 27 exclusive use area, and this is what you need, the right must be reflected on, number 1, the sectional title plan. Included in the Section 11 subsection 1 application is a form to the deeds office, an application to the deeds office, registered by issuing a certificate of real right. Those 3 things, and then transferred to you by notarial deed of cession. So do you have that? Do you have your sectional title plan? Do you have the Section 11.1 application that your conveyancer did? Was there a registered right issued? Was there the registered issued a certificate of real right? If you don't have those things and you've lodged it at the deeds office, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot have your notarial deed of cession. So please ask for those documents from your transferring attorney. Remember, they will have it on file, even if it's long ago. And I urge you, even if you don't have an exclusive use area after this explanation, go get the sectional title plan of your body corporate. It is very, very important. Now, a real right. You can sell it, you can cede it, you can lease it, you can bond it. It has measurable commercial value. It can only be cancelled or altered. It's the formal process, the appropriate body corporate resolution, deeds office cancellation, and bondholder consent. It's binding on all owners. Purchases and third parties exist independently of the scheme's rules. If you, for instance, bought parking number 1 and you have your notarial deed of cession, we can't now write a rule as the body corporate of Happy Days to say, Jolene Wasserman, you have bought your parking and we see your session certificate, but we are cancelling it in the rules. We are giving it now to Catherine because that's what we want to do. We cannot do that. It's a legal document that's got the same power as your title deed. No one can come and take your unit because they say, yes, we decided you must give your unit up and it's ours now. Well, unfortunately, it happens with hijackings in buildings, but that session is yours. It's golden. Say you don't have that session if you ask your transferring attorneys now today. Now, there's another one that you might have it, a rule created. Rule created. Yes, okay. We've created parking areas 15 years ago. And we have lodged and submitted them to the deeds office. Now, we must clarify a very, very important thing here, ladies and gentlemen. The deeds office never had a mandate in terms of the Deeds Registry Act to quality assure the rules and the exclusive use allocation in those rules. It doesn't say it's not valid in the deeds office, but even if the deeds office didn't have a mandate, you must be very careful to say it is invalid, because if you've lodged the required form at the time, if you've lodged the sectional title plan with the resolution of the trustees, with the resolution of the scheme, apologies to say that we have allocated these parkings plus the rules and the sectional title plan, and the deeds office have stamped it. It is binding, but 99% of rules are not valid when it was submitted to the deeds office, because people only, body corporates only submitted the rules and not the resolution or the sectional title plan. Now remember, it's no fault of yours. Nobody knew. In any event, the deeds office didn't have a mandate. So please make sure those rules were in the deeds office, but all the documents were lodged, the same as what you lodged at the CSOS, your documents. And that is the thing many homeowners or attorneys get wrong, due to the fact that it can be valid if you've submitted all those documents to the deeds office. And they, of course, stamped it. Just to stamp the rules in itself, it's not valid. So let's fast forward. The CSOS has now been in operation for 11 years. I worked there for 8 years, been gone for about 4.5 years now. If your rules are not lodged with the CSOS, the Community Scheme Ombud Service, and say you didn't lodge it the correct way in the deeds office, then those rules are not enforceable. And that rule created exclusive use areas is not valid. So let's look at it. This is a personal right. This means that we draft the conduct rules and then we say Addendum A or Annexure 1, and we do a parking schedule, a storeroom schedule, a garden schedule, as well as solar. Remember, the roof is common property, but if I want to put up my solar for unit number 1, they allocate a part of the roof to me by special resolution. We'll get to the consents later on regarding of what rules it is. Very, very important. Your solar allocation must also be allocated in the rules if you put on your solar and your neighbor says he doesn't want to put up solar. Very, very, very important. Not talking about the companies that come and install solar and there's a loan for the body corporate less than 10 years or more than 10 years. So this is a rule created. It can either be in the management rules or the conduct rules. Management rules is a unanimous resolution. Conduct rules is a special resolution. I like when we open these sectional title registers in the deeds office, with the developer and he would not like to sell it off, or he doesn't demarcate it to sell off the parking or the gardens, and he wants rule created, we draft it in the management rules. It's more difficult to change, of course, the management rules. Highly impossible to get a unanimous resolution for large blocks. The rule must be approved by the CSOS. It's a personal right, only enforceable within the scheme. That's not registered in the deeds office and cannot be bonded. Can be amended or cancelled by resolution. So a real right is section 27. The right is registered and enforceable against the world. Section 10 is a personal right. This right exists because the scheme's rules allow for it. So go check your rules first. You're going to ask, is our rules registered with the CSOS? It's law. CSOS is going to start issuing fines. They said, I hope they don't as yet, because there is only, I did an article the other day about, and I speak under correction, 50 or 60% of community schemes are registered in South Africa, or even less than 50%. So they must give us an opportunity first to legally comply with our community schemes. And the CSOS must assist us if our rules have not been registered with the CSOS and quality assured and a section 10.5C issued. But the time has come for you to legalize this and ensure your rules are registered and that you have an exclusive use area over that garden that you've said that is yours. So it's either go check your sectional title plan, your notarial deed of cession, or your rules. Do you have an EUA? Okay. Exclusive use does not confer an automatic right to build. So say, for instance, I have now been allocated garden number 1, and I now want to do a structure on there, or I want to put a pool in there. Then I need a further permission. It doesn't say when I've allocated, it's now mine, the exclusive use area, I can do as I want. An exclusive use area remains common property. Any physical alteration affects the rights of all owners. And we look upon the prescribed management rules. Now, many people get this wrong. And I'm reading it to you. PMR 30G provides that an owner may make improvements to your EUA only with the approval of the body corporate by ordinary resolution, unless such authority has been lawfully delegated. The ordinary resolution is 51%. Those AGM meetings that you refuse to go with, where we approve the budget, appoint new trustees, etc., that's a 51%. It's the same, it's an ordinary resolution. Typical examples requiring approval include pergolas, carports, braais, sheds, patios, enclosures. Trustees' approval alone is insufficient, ladies and gentlemen, unless the members have expressed delegated authority, which doesn't happen because you'll have to put and replace the prescribed management rules with that. Because prescribed management rule 30G says you need an ordinary resolution to do improvements on your common property, on your exclusive use area. When an improvement becomes an extension of a section, very important, the structure, if it's watertight, permanently enclosed and increases the floor area of the section, once again, it's section 24 of the Sectional Titles Act and Section 5 of the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act. It constitutes an extension of the section, not merely an EUA improvement. Then that's a special resolution and an amendment to the sectional plan prepared by a land surveyor and registered in the deeds office. It gets more complicated, ladies and gentlemen. It's different approvals for different things, especially when you've enclosed that structure. I am, in fact, on my way to Cape Town to go look at exclusive use areas at various bodies corporates now, where the entire structure has been enclosed. It's watertight. In fact, there is building alterations, that encroaches on common property. So these things get complicated. You must always have, if you have your building plans, and remember, you also need approval sometimes from the municipality. It's not just the members approve, and then you go. Afterwards, I'll send a checklist and a decision-making tree. If this is what you want to build, this is the approval that you need. I don't think I'll have time to explain that today. Now, what about that exclusive use area and the maintenance and the cost recovery? How many matters have ended up in court or the CISOs because we've not charged members for that exclusive use area that they're using? This is what the law says. Section 31C of the STM-SMA says the body corporate is responsible for maintaining common property, including EUAs. The body corporate must recover the full cost from the owner who enjoys the exclusive use of it. What does this recoverable cost include? Maintenance, repairs, cleaning and upkeep, insurance-related costs, utilities of rights where separately attributable. Failure to recover these costs results in unlawful cross-subsidization. So I'm paying for your exclusive use area at the end of the day because you have not been charged for it to defray the actual costs. So if we say we have a rule-created exclusive use area, how could we get it formalized in the deeds office? This is the process. Body corporate resolution. The body corporate must approve the creation of a Section 27 EUA. Remember, that's bilateral deed of special, and it's a special resolution. Survey and delineation and land surveyor must come in and prepare a plan. A sectional title plan amended, it must be on the plan and lodged at the deeds office. A certificate of real right must be registered in the deeds office. Notarial session. The right is then ceded to you, the owner. Bondholder consent. We must get consent from your bank. Until the process is completed and registered, the exclusive use remains a personal right only. Provided that you have that personal right and it's rule created and it's in the rules. Disclosure when buying and selling. Real rights exclusive use area must be disclosed, must be transferred by notarial deed, appear in the title documentations I've mentioned, all three of them, not just the sectional title plan. How many estate agents have said, but we don't have the plans, we don't have the rules? And I've done a session a couple of weeks ago and I made a video about it. You as the buyer must do your due diligence. You must ask if you know who's the body corporate, who is the managing agent perhaps, managing agent, or go to your attorney to pull a win deed to say, do you know perhaps if there's rules for the managing agent, if you can find out who that can be. Most times the real estate agent will know at least the managing agent, and then you can phone and say, I'm a potential buyer, can I please have the rules? You can ask an attorney to please pull the sectional title plan for you at the deeds office to say, if you like what you see here, are you sure what you buy? Many times the real estate agent is not aware of it, because no one has these documents. Always off topic, ask for the balance sheet. What's the finances in the body corporate? Is there court cases? Is there a lot of people with an arrears? Do your due diligence as a buyer. Rule-based exclusive use area must be verified and CISOs approved, because I can tell you, as I said before, 99% of the time it wasn't lodged correctly and registered at the deeds office, and they just stamped the rule. That doesn't make it valid in the deeds office if not all those documents have been lodged at the deeds office. Buyers must confirm that a valid rule exists and that the allocation is lawful. Ask for the resolution, either unanimous or the special resolution. Sale agreements cannot create exclusive use right. There's court cases to this effect, ladies and gentlemen. So if it's in your sale agreement, we call it the OTP, or offer to purchase. Yes, Jolene bought parking number 1. Is it yours? Do you have that session? Is it yours? Go look after this webinar. Final. Identify if it's a Section 27 or Section 10. Now remember, if you've already built that swimming pool, if you've already built that braai or that lapa, on that common property. That doesn't make it legal. You need then to first get the consent. We first need to allocate you a part of the common property, and then we must legalize and get the approval for your lapa, for your pool or your braai. Ensure the correct resolution has been passed. Confirm the compliant plan exists. The costs and obtain approval before building. But I know in South Africa, we first build and then we ask questions later. So let's go through a few questions that I have prepared. We have enough time. And remember, ask your questions. I'm going to answer all of it and put the provision of the law next to it. Okay, this is the first question. How should boundaries of an EUA be delineated when they do not coincide with permanent physical features? Exclusive use area boundaries must be beaconed in accordance with the Land Surveyor Act. Boundaries must be fixed relative to building sections or cadastral boundaries, and sectional plans must be reflected, measured, and must be accurate. If the EUA abuts a wall of a section, the plan must clearly indicate whether the boundary is the median or outer face of the wall to avoid maintenance disputes. There is currently a matter now in court that we're dealing with and we've sending experts to establish this very problem we have here. It is very, very important, the boundaries of an EUA, to make it clear what exactly it is. What are the legal implications if an EUA is sold but not ceded? Once again, it's in your OTP. If the EUA is not ceded by the deed, the cession deed, the right remains vested. It can be, say it was in the body corporate after the Section 25 right lapsed, or even if the purchaser paid for it, doesn't mean it's yours if you don't have a notarial deed of cession. This can lead to damages claim, and this happens in court. Financing problem with bonds and additional costs because a later cession will require proper resolution registration. It's very, very important. Go check your sale agreement. Go check if you have your cession. Go check if it's in the registered real rights. Go check if it's in the section of the application 11.1 and go see if it's in the sectional title plan what you bought. Can a body corporate impose different views for solar panels? No. A uniform rule regulating installation, positioning, design, all those things, it must be across the board. You can't say Jolene can have solar, but Danny can't have solar. If Danny also wants solar, it is the same as parking, the same as storerooms. How does the body corporate handle the fact that exclusive use areas had not been formally established? They should regularize it by formally establishing the EUA and transfer allocating it to the relevant owner. If an owner refuses to accept maintenance obligation, you may approach officials for order regulating the use of that part of the common property. What is the default rule regarding maintenance repair responsibilities? Once again, the body corporate remains responsible for maintaining that part of the common property, and all parts, in fact, apologies for common property, including your EUA. But the holder of the EUA must bear the cost. Scheme rules may delegate maintenance obligations directly to the owner. Say, Jolene, you are responsible for your parking, your storeroom, and gets it registered with the CSOS with a Section 1056 compliance certificate. Are alterations to an EUA that increase usable floor area considered a section extension, requiring special approval? Remember what we've said before? Yes. If an alteration encloses an outdoor area and increases the usable floor area of its section, it constitutes an extension of the section. This requires the formal approval process, and there's a whole process as per Section 24 in the Sectional Titles Act. I'd be happy to send it to you. It includes amendment of the plan. I will also attach it to the Q&A. Can holders of EUA gardens install structures like we spoke about, this braais or swimming pool? No. EOIs must be used for their intended purpose, and structural additions typically require body corporate approval. Large structures such as braais or pool may be restricted depending on the scheme rules and the designated use of the area. How should the body corporate treat unfairly calculated EOI levy contributions again? Matters have been lost at the CSOS because of the incorrect allocation. What must Jolene pay for her EOI? Then they charge me an exorbitant amount. No, it must be reasonable in terms of that exclusive use area. And the owner will go to CSOF and says, but why am I paying 10,000 Rand in exclusive use area levies? You can't do that. So check the calculation. Normally how we do it, we take the complete participation quota of the entire scheme, and then we look at only the exclusive use size area, and then we calculate it from there. So is your exclusive use area calculation correct, ladies and gentlemen? And of course, your managing agent can assist you with that. What procedural precautions should be taken when drafting agreements involving the sale of the unit? The conveyancer should, and that's why you have to have a very good conveyancer to check this offer to purchase, should verify whether the EU is registered and ensure the sale agreement clearly states that you've bought parking number 1. It's very, very important. Now, obviously, these things will be transferred simultaneously to you, the unit owner, and the session will be issued to you in the deeds office. What happens if the body corporate refuses to issue a clearance certificate due to disputes over EOIs? You may then approach the court to obtain an order correcting the deeds office records of clarifying ownership of the EOI. Very, very, very important that there was a court case, and I'll also attach it. Don't want to bore you now, but the judge said in the High Court that you can't withhold a clearance certificate due if there's anything other outstanding than the actual contribution amounts that's owing to the body corporate. Yes, but Jolene transgressed the rules 10 years ago and she must be fined. You can't withhold that clearance certificate. EOI for a purpose other than the stipulated use of it. You cannot use that exclusive use area for any other purpose. You need consent of all owners. What about if I convert my bathroom into a bar area? You need the consent of all owners. How detailed must plans be when establishing rule-based EOIs? Plans should be professionally drafted to scale by an architect, draftsman or qualified professional. Fully drafted plans can create boundary and allocation disputes. So very, very important that someone drafts it that knows what they're doing. Who's responsible for maintaining infrastructure such as water pipes under the EOI? If the infrastructure serves the EOI itself, the body corporate must arrange maintenance what may recover the cost from the EOI holder. If it serves that section directly, the body corporate remains responsible for that maintenance at its own cost. So this is also very, very important when we're dealing with pipes and anything like that running underneath your section. Can the body corporate charge owners for maintenance or repairs on unauthorized extensions into EOIs? No. Unauthorized extensions are not recognized and the owner cannot require the body corporate to maintain them. The body corporate may instead require removal or proper approval and regularization. Now, it is not first prize to demolish the structure if it's already there. Let's legalize and regularize it. Let's get the necessary approvals from the body corporate and or the municipalities. We not always want to do demolishing. Of course, if it's an unsafe structure, if my LAPA violates all the regulations in this country and the insurance doesn't even want to insure it, then the trustees must insist that that LAPA be removed because it is one of the immediate obvious problems is a fire risk. You must always ensure that the exclusive use area is insured on the insurance policy schedule. Please ask your broker for it. What steps should a member take if denied access to the records? There's no such thing. if you live in a community scheme in South Africa, you're entitled not only to the financials, but the records, anything relating to your property investment. That's why I'm saying go get your sectional title plan, go get your notarial deed of cession. If you knew you paid for it, but you've never seen the cession document, please go get it. Go get the copy of the rules. You must have these things readily available. Can EOAs be rented out or sold for purpose different than the intended use? No. What are the consequences if the body corporate fails to call the first general meeting of the establishment, the EOAs? We call it the inaugural general meeting. Then the members may convene this meeting. Very, very important. Everything ties back to the sectional title plan, to the rules. Do you know what you bought and is it yours? And what you've built on that exclusive use area, do you have consent for it? I've talked about the solar. Are managing agents or trustees custodians of owner contact information and EOA records? Yes, 100%, but they can only have what has been recorded, or if there is an EOA addendum to allocate parking via the rules. How should disputes over maintenance obligations of EOAs be resolved when scheme rules are unclear? It might say in your scheme rules, yes, there is exclusive use areas and it must be used for its intended use. Okay, where's the schedule? Do we know this is the people 1 to 10 that owns exclusive use area via rules? It must be clear in your rules, because obviously I said in the beginning, and this is my aim in order to ensure good governance compliance within community schemes, is we want to mitigate the risk of litigation. We want to mitigate the risk of going to CISOS and be found liable because we've overcharged the member on his exclusive use contributions. We've not given that member authorization to use that EOA in terms of the rule. Or if the member has a session, a real right, we've taken that away. That is the aim. This is the aim, ladies and gentlemen. Let's regularize. Let's legalize. Make sure you know what you bought or what is rule created. I can't stress this enough. It's not the end of the world if you've built that braai area or that swimming pool on common property. We must first just allocate that part of the common property to you, and then we're going to get the consent for you, of course, for your pool, etc. Very, very important. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is me for today. My name is Jolene Wasserman. That is the team. I am going to introduce them. It is Erin. It's our candidate attorney in the Community Schemes Department. Zanele, also our candidate attorney. Then me. Then Denise. It is one of our associates in the Community Scheme Department. And JD, our other associate and in our Community Schemes Department. We are also getting another individual into our Community Schemes Department, and her name is Jacqueline Subramani, and she's also studying law, and she is going to be a paralegal. And I'm from VDM Attorneys, and I thank you very much for attending this webinar. So let me just recap what I'm going to do. I'm going to send out the questions and answers, but I'm first going to collate all the questions and answers. Then I'm going to do it in table format, the question, the answer, and the legislation. Now, remember, many of these things, there's court cases, there was judgment reserved in it, from the change of use, the exclusive use area, from the incorrect contribution charge in the exclusive use area, from the exclusive use area that's not yours, where you built that braai and swimming pool on, or that parking that you've been using for the last 10 years. So I can also say, look at this court case, it's very, very interesting. Exclusive use area is very misunderstood in South Africa, but it is not a train smash. We're not doing a fault-finding exercise here, ladies and gentlemen, to say, right, let's go walk around in our complex. and we see how many people have built braai areas there, and we all going to take them to CISOS now. No, internal mediation is key, internal dispute resolution. Have a meeting. Let's see what is being built. Is it yours via session? Is it rule created? If none of that too is applicable, but your braai areas now, then we can allocate that part of the common property to you. So there's no need to run to your attorney just yet, or the CISOS. Please, let's see if we can resolve it internally first with your scheme trustees. Call a meeting, send out the information back to the owners and say, this is how exclusive use area works. We understand that certain people have built certain things on common property. Let's regularize and legalize. So not to create panic. It's a beautiful thing when members within a community can resolve this in itself. The CISOS takes a bit longer now for adjudication orders. And by that time, many people want to sell or they're fed up, etc. And the court rolls are also very full. So I can implore you, if you want me to have a look at it, I will be happy to help you, ladies and gentlemen. But these things happen, and it might be happening within your scheme. We can regularize and we can legalize at the end of the day. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I'm also going to send you a checklist, a decision tree to say, if you have already have that gazebo, or you've extended your patio, or you've encroached a bit, and you've extended the floor area, I'm going to give you an entire decision tree. What is the type of resolution you need, etc., etc. I mean, we can talk the whole day long about the exclusive use area and never get tired of what it is. But I first want you to go do some homework. You have to have your sectional title plan, number one thing. Of course, your title deed. You must have that section, your title deed, the sectional title plan. It's attached to your title deed. Go look at it. What is your participation quota? Very, very important. Go look if you have a session. If that's yours in a real right. Go look at the rules, the conduct rules or the management rules. If you have different management rules other than the prescribed management rules, go look if your allocated parking and garden is there. If it's not, and you've built on it, as I said, we can have a look at it and it can be rectified. It will be costly, not I'm cheap. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about getting it through to the deeds office if it is a real right that you're going to buy, etc. So if I can implore of you, get knowledgeable. Do not tell me you don't know what you own. You don't know what you have. Get those things in order. If you don't have it, I'll be happy to pull it for you, what I can get you, ladies and gentlemen. On another note, and this is completely irrelevant, building plans is not the same as a sectional title plan. The building plans is at the local authority, and that building in Johannesburg is very, very dangerous. And there's also, Warwick, you assist me if I'm incorrect, there's also a lot of carte blanche has spoken about it, etc. So your building plans, if it's not online, the older buildings, you have to go look at that unsafe building, the local authorities building, to get the building plans. So it's very, very important. If you don't have your building plans, that's okay. Your sectional title plan is very, very important. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, like I said, keep on posting your questions. I'm going to collate everything and send it to all of you. It will be anonymous. Not going to send out 100 or so emails that you have one another's email, because that's still something that POPI protects. At the end of the day is your personal information. I see we have a hand. Is it John or Jean? We still have a minute. John, you can go ahead. Okay, John, you can pop your question in the comments. Then I can't hear you, and I will also be happy to answer it. I'll also take everybody's names out that asked the question, because it's in the general public for everyone to know this. But I'll also send you the section 24 extension. When you extend your section, the criteria that you need if you've extended your section. It's specifically mentioned in section 24 of the Sectional Titles Act. So I'll send you about 3 documents, and you can have it in hand ready whenever you want to extend, or you want the exclusive use area, you want to build on the exclusive use area, etc. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. John, I can't hear you. Catherine, Danny, I'm not sure if you can hear, and I can't hear.
Unfortunately, we can't hear either, Jolene.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll send you the slides as well, and keep on asking those questions. And if there's anything else, you've got my cell phone number. That's not protected by POPI. You've got my email address. On our website, there's also many articles I write. You often see these things in the media as well. I've done a couple of things about exclusive use areas because I think it is a subject that we need to understand, and we need to legalize and regularize. But without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for my poor start, obviously not understanding my own computer. That is entirely my fault. Thank you for my marketing team. You've been amazing as always. And send a topic on what you want next as a webinar. What do you want to talk about next? Anything that relates to community schemes, property practitioners, etc. Tell me and we'll do it. I'm in your hands. And thank you very much for joining. You've been awesome, and have an awesome day. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Unfortunately, I see there's still that people would like to stay on for questions. Unfortunately, I have another meeting. Please ask your questions. I will answer them. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.